Good morning, you guys. How are you? This is Andre from the Eaglesoft Field Guide, and I see a couple people are in. If you want to open your unmute your microphones, you can do that. We're going to make this as easy as possible with questions and answers. So you guys let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go through a few things with treatment planning, and we're going to give it a little while to see if everybody else gets in the room. But if you want, unmute your mics. There is a chat box at the bottom. You can ask questions there. But I want to make sure that this hour is for you guys. Make sure that if you have any questions about treatment planning, throw them out there, and we'll talk about it. That's what we're here for. So let's see. I'm going to make sure that we give it a couple minutes to make sure everybody who's trying to get in can get in. Let's see. And so far I see just Tess and Amanda. I'm sure some other folks will come in. It's just 12:30 on the nose now. So if you have any questions, you guys, throw them out there, and I'll make sure we get them covered. But you're first come, first serve.
All right. Thanks, Andre.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. And yourself?
So far, so good. It's Wednesday.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to make sure we get covered today?
I'm just looking for, my understanding was that we're going to be looking at and going through treatment plan, entry, phasing, presentation, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And just wanted to, we've actually going to have some staff members on here. Just as kind of a reminder, different people do different things, different ways, and we would just want to make sure that we're approaching it with the most efficient approach to do so.
Yeah, and my, if anybody's been in the group for a long period of time, you've probably heard me or seen me say this a bunch of times. To me, Eaglesoft is like going to the beach. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but Eaglesoft's like going to the beach. I don't care which way you go. If you go the highway or if you go the back roads, if you stop at roadside stands, if you stop a few places on the way, as long as you eventually get to the beach, that's all that matters. So there's a million different ways to do things in Eaglesoft, but as long as you get there. Now, if you're driving east to get to the Pacific Ocean, then you've got a problem. All right. So that's where that's where I kind of step in. And usually if I go in an office, I kind of watch the way that the office does things before I try to make any changes. And if I see that they're eventually getting to the beach, then maybe we'll try to cut down some steps. And that's what we're going to have to talk about today. But if I see them driving east to get to the Pacific, then that's when I might step in and say, here's some things that you might want to do differently. But I don't want to change people's modus operandi, because the problem is we get muscle memory, and the more that we are used to doing something, sometimes the easier it is. So don't change the way that you do it, but maybe we'll add some steps to make it easier for you. So that's kind of what we're going to go through today. So, but that's a good point. Let me see. I want to make sure I'm watching about 4 different social media things here to make sure that I'm not missing anybody trying to get into the group or something like that. So, So the rest of your crew is going to be joining on this call, like through a speakerphone, or they're going to be calling in?
Amanda is actually part of our crew.
Okay, I see Amanda. Perfect.
And excuse me, a lot of the other staff are with patients at the moment.
Okay.
But there's just, we just need to get consistent with the way that everybody is doing this. And we've had some struggles with the clinical staff.
Sure.
So Amanda being our go-to for training the rest of the staff, we wanted to make sure she was available as well. So she and I are kind of gonna be the extension arm to making sure the rest of the staff have all of their questions answered on how to do this.
Perfect. So let's do this since you guys are here, and let's start by sharing my screen out, and you guys can see my Eaglesoft, I'm hoping.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So I've got my screen split so that you guys can see both my front desk screen and a treatment planning screen at the same time, just to make it easier. A couple things that I always start with, and the most important thing about better utilization of Eaglesoft is, and we're not going to talk so much about estimation. That'll be a part of this, but that's not the primary focus here. The primary focus is getting a treatment plan, and getting the codes in, getting the phasing in, getting the charting done, that kind of stuff. estimation was another conversation, but you'll see that as part of what we talk about today. So let's look at what I start with is codes and making sure that codes are not only clear, but easy and easy to get to. So first thing I start with is a really clean service code list. And my service code list, and when I say clean, I want to make sure that my descriptions, and you guys, if you've seen any of the videos before or seen any of the conversations I've had before, I really want to make sure that if you're looking for a crown, and some offices go by description. If you're looking for a crown, I want you to be able to type in crown and be able to quickly see all your crowns. Now, the problem with that is some people put it in as porcelain to high noble metal crown, and they put in, all ceramic crown. And if you do that, how easy is it to search by description? Because is it, three surface composite, or is it posterior composite three surface? Those kind of things make it really difficult. So you can see just in my list of crowns, and I have my enactors showing, but you can see how quickly I can see, here's my 3/4 crowns, here's my abutment supported crowns, here's my Cerac crown, my Emax crown, my full cast metal crown, and it says right there gold. So I can quickly go down the list to see what I'm using. There's a provisional, there's my recementation, really easy. If it has to do with crowns, it's going to be really quick and easy for me to find and utilize. The other part of that is you can see that I have recementation. I have a tri-end. So there's a lot of offices that I work with who do tri-ends and crowns. There's my insertion of a crown. All right. So, this could be the final cementation, whatever you want to name it. All right. But I have this set up as an A code. And in my offices, A codes are the admin codes. And I make that part of the process. So if I have an office that does CAD CAM crowns, I have a lot of Cerac owners. So my CAD CAM owners don't utilize that code unless they're going to do a lab fabricated crown. So here's one of the things I wanted to look at. Can we make combinations of the services that you typically do in your office so that you only have to hit one code in order to get the services done that you typically do? And that would be under list, and it would be exploding code. And Jules just posted about this in the Facebook group a little while ago, saying that this was one of the best tips and tricks that she had. So under my exploding codes, and I just have a few here, but you can see I've got two extraction option here. All right, so just different things. I've got a 3-unit bridge setup. I've got a bridge and build up. I've got a denture full treatment plan, and I'll show you how to do that with the timeline that I want as a provider. I've got the extractions to implant treatment plan. So that's the extraction, bone graft, implant, custom abutment, and implant crown. I've got a full denture treatment plan, which is the same as the other one. And then all these others. And again, this is my test program, test database. So a lot of this is just made up stuff, but you can kind of get an idea. The other thing you'll notice is I have combinations down here for my recall adult and recall child. Now, for recall child, we have the typical exam, 2 bite wings, cleaning, fluoride. But a lot of times we might not be doing bite wings on this. So why don't we make another code, all right, and let's choose to new, and let's call this, and I always start all of my exploding codes with a period, RCA, and I'm going to put an X here only because I didn't put it on the other one. So this would be my recall child with no bite wings. And that's not the way I would typically do it, but I'm going to just put it here for the sake of it. And I'm actually going to put this on my child profi button, and I'm going to start adding codes. And this is going to be a D0120. This is going to be no bite wings, so D1120, and then my D1206. All right, so those are my codes that I'm going to be using, because this is the same as the one that you see there, recall child, but this one has no bite wings in it. So depending on which one I'm going to be using, I can just grab one code, utilize it, and be done. Same thing for treatment planning, same thing for scheduling, it doesn't matter, but you should come up with any kinds of combinations of codes that you use in your treatment planning process or scheduling process to make it easier.
Do you mind me asking why you start your exploding codes with a period?
So let's take a look. So let's schedule a patient. And this is what I see people doing all the time. And again, I stand over people's shoulders and I watch them schedule. So if I go to schedule a patient here, and I'm just going to grab the last person I worked on. All right. And then I go to grab a service code. All right, add service. And I see people typing in like pro fee or whatever, or going to find the codes. But if you look at the top of my list, as soon as I open my code list up, look at the top of my list. Those are all my exploding codes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because they're the most frequently used things. And because I put a period in front of them alphabetically, they're at the top of my list.
Perfect.
So now all I have to do is grab that one that I just used, that recall child no bite wings, use it, boom, done. And that makes it so much easier than having to go root around for a code someplace. So they're always going to be at the top of my list, because even if I'm going to be doing treatment planning, I don't want to save that. I'm going to get rid of that. And let's go bring that same patient up, and let's create a treatment plan for that patient. All right. So yes, I want to create a new treatment plan. I always name my treatment plans what they are. I don't give a date. And that, to me, it makes no sense to put a date on there. The date has nothing to do with being able to look up the treatment plan. I want to see what I'm doing. So if I'm saying implant lower right, something like that, or let's say lower left. All right, implant, sorry, I misspelled that. And okay. Now I'm going to do an implant treatment plan on the lower left for tooth number 18. Let's call it that. I'm going to bring up my code list. So if I hit F2 on my keyboard, there's my code list. So if everybody doesn't know that, F2 on your keyboard when you're in the service block will bring up your list of services. So now all I have to do is just find my, let's do the implant single tooth custom abutment. Utilize it, bada bing. There's all my service codes in there. Let's get that out the way. And let's just go down here and say tooth number 18, tooth number 18, and tooth number 18. And we're going to be doing the implant body first, and we bring the patient back to do the abutment, and then we do the crown. I know that would typically do on the same visit, but there's my entire treatment plan done in one shot with one code. I'm just going to clear this out. And let's create another plan. New plan. And let's make one for a denture. So this is going to be for a full denture. All right. And I want to use those. And I'm going to hit my F2 button again to bring up my code list. And here's my denture with time. And I'm going to utilize that. And hopefully I set this up properly. So there's my denture with the timing that I want to have, and I'll expand that so you guys can see. All right. So there's the upper denture. That'll be first. And then we're going to do another impression. And then on this visit with the impression, I need a little extra time. So over there, I'm going to write that I need 4 units. All right. Now, the beauty of this is when I go to schedule this patient, imagine they call back and they want to schedule. I know on visit 2 how long that appointment's going to be, because I've actually created this treatment plan phase timing to go along with it. And I can do the same thing on the 3rd visit, the 4th visit, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have these, again, admin codes, they start with an A. If I have my admin codes, I can make that part of a treatment plan, as well as my try-ins, my deliveries, my post insertion adjustments. All this can be done in a really quick, easy way, and phasing the treatment plan that way. Does that make sense?
It does.
Perfect. All right. So let's delete that plan. All right, let's get out of here. Oops. Cool. So that also means that once we're working on this patient, and let's pull the last patient up. If I created that treatment plan, even in the treatment plan area, he's going to have that treatment plan as part of his charting. And I know I don't have my crown on here. I think I don't have it on top. There it is. So now I can quickly see that the crown treatment plan that I wrote for that patient automatically gets charted. So it doesn't matter if I do it from the odontograph, from the chart, or if I do it from the treatment plan. Either way, that patient's going to have these services charted.
Mhm.
So it really doesn't matter which way you do it. You know, sometimes it's easier as an admin person to do it from codes. Sometimes as a clinical person, it's easier to do it from the odontograph. And I'm going to show you right from the odontograph. If I want to do a root canal, post and core and crown on number 30, all I have to do is grab my little drop down there. And again, actually I put it on crowns, I think. All I have to do is hit that crown and build up, or root canal build up and crown, or root canal post and crown, grab that. And now I can do visit. We're already on 3, so this is going to be visit 4. And here it is. The root canal is going to be referred out. All right. And then we're going to bring the patient back on the 5th visit, and we're going to do the post and core. All right. And then we're going to, on the 6th visit, we're going to do the crown. And then we're going to insert the crown on visit number 7. So there you go.
And can I ask you, Andre, when we set up those exploding codes successfully, does that automatically put your button on the tooth chart there?
Yeah, so a successful exploding code will include, and I'm going to go back to my exploding code and pull up my root canal, post, and crown. You'll see the button that I put it on.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you want to make it a two-parter. So you want to create the code.
So you can actually set those buttons up there.
Exactly.
So the button group is actually assigned from the exploding code.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So every code can be assigned to a button, and every exploding code can be assigned to a button.
Perfect.
All right. And then, like I said, by putting the period in the code and the period in the description, automatically brings that code, I'm going to get out of that, up to the top of the list of your drop downs.
Okay.
Yeah. So the most commonly done procedures are always going to be up at the top. All right. Now, one of the things that I did to try to make life easier, and I see a lot of offices who struggle with this, where it's really hard to find a particular code, especially like some of the implant codes are kind of difficult to find for some people. And then perio maintenance, perio scaling, because it's really the only codes that maybe a hygienist might do in the code, those codes. So sometimes I'll actually take a service that actually doesn't need an exploding code, but I'll attach it to an exploding code so that it brings it to the top. It's almost like just remaking the code. I thought I did that I usually do that for perio maintenance to put it back to the top of the list. Oh, there it is. See how I put a period in front of a perio maintenance and attached it to an exploding code for the same code.
Mm-hmm.
So on my code list, again, if I go to my code list, the perio maintenance is going to pop to the top. Just something you can try.
Gotcha.
Yep. So again, let's no, don't save the changes. I will save them. Okay. Treatment planning using exploding codes, fantastic tool. Treatment planning using phasing, phenomenal tool. Because let's just go back to this guy's chart, and now let's look at a few things. All right. So he's got 2 treatment plans. All right. And one of them is phase 1 through, I forget, 6, I think I had, or 1 through 4, 1 through 3. And then the other one is treatment plans for phase 4 through 7. Now, if I only want to look at one treatment plan, I can actually go down to show what, and I can say, I don't really need to see everything. I just want to see 1 through 4. And that will eliminate, I should have 1 through 3. That'll eliminate seeing the treatment plan on the other side. All right. And conversely, I could do 4 through 7. All right. So this is a quick, easy way to clean up a treatment plan. Or imagine if we gave a patient a treatment plan for root canal, post and core and crown, or extraction, implant, crown. And we can say those two, the root canal, post and core, the extraction is option 1. And then the implant and crown is option 2. So if we want to do that, we can quickly do 2 treatment plans and then hide the one we don't want to see just by using the phases. And that makes it a whole lot easier, but we can also get to the point where if we're printing a treatment plan for the patient, all right, we can still pick everything from the treatment plan, all right, but when we process it to print, we only have to print by phase 1 to 3, and that would have given us the extraction, implant, and crown, or we can print 4 through whatever the other one, 4 through 7. And either way, we can have 2 treatment plans within the same patient, but be able to sort of filter it as we either print it or present it to the patient, whichever way we want to go. So, and that also works if you want to, when we're submitting to insurance, if we want to send one as opposed to the other, it can still be all within the same treatment plan, but we can do it in such a way that it works out that way. So let's clear this out. Yes. All right. Questions? Since you guys are really the only people in here right now, we might as well make this about you guys. What else can we help with?
I'm excited about getting some exploding codes set up now.
Yeah, and literally whatever you guys can think of. I do RCA for adult, RCT for the tweens, because maybe they're tweenagers and they need 4 bite wings, but they get a child prophy. So come up with whatever scenarios you come up with. And I like to do RCA for no bite wings and RCAX for those when we do bite wings, RCAP for if you include a perio charting in that visit. So whatever you guys can think of that's unique for your office, you can come up with whatever scenario you can think of in order to do that. But also, don't get caught up in things like sealants. Right? Don't do a exploding code for 4 sealants. It's almost harder to do it that way, because either way, you got to go back and put the tooth numbers in. Same thing with scaling and root planning. To do it as 4, you're still going to have to go back and put the quads in. So, think about whatever scenario you want. And remember, if you don't like it, exploding codes can be deleted and, just hit delete and they're gone. It doesn't affect the codes. But if you don't like it, go back and make a new one.
Well, some of our clinical staff struggles with which codes to use with which major procedures.
Yeah.
So this will be ideal for that.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I really, when I set up an office, I'm really working hard to make sure that these quick picks, that's what these are called, these quick picks are really clear, so that when we hit a drop down, it's obvious what those codes are for. I mean, I don't want it to say something that the office is going, I don't know what that means. In my implants, I want to make sure that they understand that it's the implant body, it's an implant support. I mean, it's a crown abutment supported as opposed to implant supported. So you can go in here and rename these things whatever you want, so that they're really clear for everybody in the office. But also for your walkout statements to be really clear, so that patients understand what's going on. Because if you have crown listed 4 times, they don't know what that's for. So, that's the kind of way that I want to make sure that even like here, it says, professional cleaning as opposed to prophy, So go in here and rename them anything you want, so that your walkouts look good, your treatment planning looks good. Everything is really clear when you do this.
Perfect.
Yep. Also, if you do any of the treatment planning, any of the exploding codes for the implants, make sure that you're doing them in the right sequence, because if you forget the codes and they're not in the right sequence, you saw what happened. My crown went behind the implant. So make sure you're doing implant, custom abutment, crown, so they layer in properly.
Okay.
All right. If you do something like an immediate denture, don't make the extractions part of it, because you're not going to know which teeth need to be extracted during an immediate denture. But you always want your denture to go in first. So my denture, full upper or upper all. And then I go back and I hit the teeth that need to be extracted, so that my extractions show on top of my denture, and I'll know which ones to extract. Gotcha. Then when I'm done, I can bring the denture to the top and hide those things out.
So they will cover each other. They will hide each other then.
They will. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And same thing, if you've got a implant retained denture, make sure you're doing the implants afterwards, so you kind of know where those things are going to go afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. Easy peasy. Okay. So let's also talk about this. I never, and I should never say never, but I never use the treatment plan printed from Eaglesoft as a presentation to my patients. The reason I don't is because I just don't think it looks very professional.
Mhm.
So I make sure that when I do print a treatment plan for a patient, I'm looking on my other screen to grab this. I make sure that I have some format to do a treatment plan that I can actually give to a patient. I'm going to open this up over here, and I'm going to drag this over here. So this is the financial arrangement form that I utilize when I work with a patient. And I kind of do this, and this is going to sound kind of crappy, but I do this. I print this off. I have a stack of them that I keep in the operatory, and I write on this just like if you've ever bought a car, and the car salesman is writing out those numbers on a sheet of paper. That's the way I present this. So I'm going to write on here today's date, a brief description of the services the patient's having done. So implant on the upper right or whatever it is. All right. I'm going to put the total amount of the treatment plan, and that I will take from the Eaglesoft treatment plan, the expected insurance contribution, and then how much we're adjusting off as a preferred provider. Again, if you're not in network, you can take that whole line off. All right. And then how much is the patient's portion? And then at the bottom is how are you going to pay for this?
Mhm.
And a signature page. Because I don't want the patients to get caught up in the minutia. I don't want a patient to say, oh, well, can we do the crown first and then the root canal later? You know, I don't need them to see all that. I just want them to see, we're going to make your smile beautiful. That could be the description of the services. I'm not going to be that vague, but I don't want them to go through the line items and line items and line items and try to pick it apart. So I utilize this as my sort of cover sheet that would go on top of the Eaglesoft printed treatment plan so that they can have some financial arrangements. So this is all
Mhm.
really clear, but I never utilize that treatment plan form from Eaglesoft as my presentation to the patient.
Do you think it's just, I mean, do you think it's just too much or?
I think it's too much. I think it looks like it's from 1980.
Mhm.
I think it looks like it could have, like those holes on the side, like the old Dr. Matrix printers. All right. I just think it looks really bad. I think the only alternative, and this is something I talk about in my customer service seminars, is one of the things I do with every dental Eaglesoft offices I work with is I grab a ream of paper and I put it in the printer, a color printer, and I take the logo of the office and I will like watermark it, make it as faint as possible, and I make it the entire size of the sheet of the paper, and I will print an entire ream of paper with the logo on that paper. And then I put the
Mhm.
paper back in the printer so that now as a patient gets a walkout statement, it's got your logo on it. All right.
Nice.
And if nothing else, even if it's just scrap paper, I mean, come on, what's a printer cartridge cost? $50 or $25 or whatever. So at least it looks nice when patients have that. And it's just for me, as my background's customer service. As a customer service person, I just hate that white sheet of paper with your name at the top, but no logo, no nothing. So to me, a presentation of a treatment plan on a piece of paper like that just looks really crappy, especially if you're talking, $10,000 treatment plan,
Mhm.
$50,000 treatment plan. It just looks really bad. So I always present the treatment plan on that financial arrangement form. My patients are signing it. If there's a consent, that's a separate sheet of paper, but I don't want them to have that layout like Eaglesoft does. It just, to me, looks poor for a expensive treatment plan. So
Yeah.
that's just my take on things.
Just dresses it up a bit.
Exactly. And that's, sometimes that's really what it's all about.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I do. The other thing I do is if you notice that green TX
Mhm.
in my operatory, I use a lot of my IntelliCares. And that IntelliCare lets me know that this patient has a treatment plan that's over $1,000 that's incomplete. So anytime I have a patient who has a treatment plan and it's incomplete, I want to see that. If they have a referred service, let's do an implant. Let's say they have this referred implant, and it probably will not show up quickly. But if there's a referred service that is outstanding, I would also get a TX on here, but it would be in brown. There it is. So I get a brown TX that shows or lets me know that this patient has a referred service that is outstanding. So that way I know if I, as soon as I walk in the operatory, as a treatment planner, as somebody who does the treatment coordination, I automatically know this person's got an outstanding treatment plan that's one, over $1,000, and two, they haven't gotten something done that we referred them out for.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things really make a big difference when I'm working with an office, to be able to see, are we missing things? Are they, are we not taking stuff out of the treatment plan that should have been?
Now,
And
Andre, that box that you're referring to there,
yep.
is that a custom setup? Like how was that created?
Okay. So the first two, the green tooth and the red tooth, are basic IntelliCares, which means anybody can have them.
Okay.
The bluish symbol, that is the symbol for MetLife. That's a custom IntelliCare that has to be written by somebody like me or somebody like the Patterson Technology Center who knows how to write a code for custom IntelliCares.
Okay.
The toothbrush is an easy one. That just means that a patient hasn't had a prophy for more than 8 months. So there's some that are custom, some that are created for the office. The little black bird there lets me know this person's on a 12-month recall. They were a snowbird, so they go back and forth from Florida to where I live up in Pennsylvania. So, but you can customize these things, or you can have standards. So the standard things, let me find my mouse, under list and IntelliCare, and there's a whole webinar on IntelliCares. So up at the top here, these are my sort of standard IntelliCares. But let's see. Review. Here's my review for bite wings. So that green tooth comes from this. So review need for bite wings. I put my codes here that would trigger the services, 2 bite wings, 4 bite wings, and FMX. So I want to have my bite wings reviewed every 12 months and a day. And I automatically get a green tooth that shows on my appointment screen and in my clinical screen if the patient fits into that criteria. And you can tweak it even more. You can say, like, for my full series, I have it set up so it's only for ages 14 and older. So whatever you want, you can have it set up that way.
Okay.
Yep. But there's a bunch of webinars on IntelliCares. I'll show you what they look like on the schedule. Let's go to March. And you can see how they look on my schedule too.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And I think a lot of what you're using the IntelliCare for is what our office typically does a patient alert for.
Yep.
But then that patient alert is, it's not as customizable per appointment.
And just like, poor analogy, but just like this, COVID test getting, negative and positive, you don't know which one's true. If you're getting these results and you don't know, is this a true number? Or is this not a true number? The problem is you're going to ignore it after a while. Mm-hmm. We want to know that when I see a red tooth there, that means that patient hasn't had an FMX in 60 months. Doesn't mean they need it, but they haven't had one in our office. So we can look at it and say, oh, that patient's got a full denture, but maybe they're eligible for a Panorex, and maybe we should take a Panorex. There's a lot of people walking around who have a full denture who've still got some root tips up there. Mm-hmm. So, that's what I'm saying. We want to be able to look at this and say, what's going on with this patient? And actually, from a practice management standpoint, if I look at Charles right here, Charles is coming in for whatever treatment he's coming in for, all right? And he's got a red tooth there, but I had a patient who fell out of my schedule over here. But guess what? Maybe if Chuck is here at 2 o'clock, it was at 1:50 instead of 2, I can get him over here, take his FMX, send him back over there for his crown insertion or whatever he's getting done. And we didn't lose $150 in production in hygiene today. Mm-hmm. So I utilize it not just for, knowing if somebody's due for something, but also realizing that there's some things that we might be able to utilize to fill the schedule without having to get on the phone and try to reactivate people or whatever. So they work a couple of different ways. And, but like I said, when it comes to treatment planning, I want to be able to see those things, because now, again, my doctors walk in the room and they know immediately, looking at that this guy's got an outstanding service that hasn't been completed. Brown TX. I know that they have MetLife, so that may change how my treatment modalities, or protocols. So, a lot of these things make a big difference when I'm looking at this, which way I'm going to be treatment planning. Yep. So get rid of that before I leave it on there. Cool. So what else can you guys think of?
Amanda, do you have anything that you need to ask or add that you feel like you guys struggle with there?
And she's muted, so just FYI. I don't know if she has anything that comes up. And Amanda, you can unmute yourself if you have a question.
I'm wondering now if I'm actually remote from Nashville for our Knoxville office, and she's in the Knoxville office. So I'm wondering if maybe she got pulled away with the patient at the moment.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. So that, you know, and like I said, the biggest thing for this is, you know, put the exploding codes in here, test it, see what happens, because, you know, I have so many of them that I work on a regular basis that I always want to find out, do they work? How do they work best? And how can I make sure that once I have them, I keep them fresh? Because like I said, sometimes we change protocols. You know, when fluoride codes changed a few years ago, we had to make sure we updated those exploding codes. You know, and whatever scenarios you can think of, you know, the worst thing is to only have one or two of them, and then you're winding up taking codes away and putting them back in as you're utilizing those exploding codes.
Yeah. And actually, Amanda just texted me. So she doesn't have microphone capability on the computer that she's on. So that's why she's not answering.
Got it. And there is a chat box at the bottom. So if you think of anything, Amanda, you can always, at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat, and you can type it in there too. So that's not a big deal, whichever way you want to do it. And, you know, like I said, a big part of this is to fully utilize the software, to get as much as you can out of it, but to make it as unique as possible for your office. You know, like I said, with the codes, make sure that you're utilizing the codes that you guys use. Are you a CAD/CAM office? Are you, you know, is cone being part of your exam process? You know, what is a new patient visit like? Is a new patient visit for an adult different than a new patient for a child? Whatever you guys do, make sure you come up with those combos so that, you know, again, I see a lot of offices, well, they'll stop using it because they're like, oh, those codes don't match what we typically do. Well, fix the codes. So.
No, I think the the exploding code and the buttons are gonna, because that's been our biggest struggle with the staff, with the clinical staff, is just the time that it takes them to enter the treatment plans, knowing which codes to use. So that was a huge aha moment for me, to be able to simplify that process for them.
Yeah, and there's a whole post on what I recommend as your, you know, what you should put as your defaults over here. It takes a lot of kind of planning. There is a report that you can run for what's on these codes, on these buttons. So you can run that report and then sort of redline what you don't want, go in there and clean them up. But what I want to utilize this for is I want the clinical team to be able to go click, 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 and be done, and not have to do a whole lot of searching. So, you know, like this button here for crown, if you do a all porcelain crown and that's your most common crown, don't make this button your porcelain to high noble metal crown. You know, so you really want to get this to clean up. These buttons that I have, guard and ortho, come out of the box as inlays and onlays, which most people don't do enough inlays and onlays to justify a button. So you can clear those out and put, like, I have all my occlusal guards and all the different guards that I use, and all the ortho and my Invisalign stuff that I might use. So utilize this as best as possible to clean this up as best as possible.
So now, how can you customize the description on those buttons, Andre?
Okay. So the descriptions come from, and let me just grab a code here. So the description
under the service
itself,
code list.
yeah, the description is actually what's right here under display abbreviation. It's the same thing that goes here that would be on your schedule. All right. But when you pick which code you want on the buttons, that comes from File, Preferences, Quick Picks.
Oh, perfect.
Yep. And then you can actually click on the button and choose what you want to be on the button.
Perfect.
Yep. So you can go through here, like I have RPD for my removable partial dentures, but you can certainly go here and say, nah, I don't like that word. Let's just make this partials, something like that.
Okay. So I probably need to go in and confirm the description on my buttons before I go through to link the exploding codes to them, just to make sure I'm not working backwards.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And the two bottom buttons are for conditions. So think about what the most common conditions are in the office. Like for me, it's watches and impactions. All right. So those two go to conditions. So the other 22 buttons, or sorry, 21 buttons, no, 22 buttons are for your services.
Perfect.
And like I said,
I have 17 years experience on Dentrix. I'm proficient in Dentrix, and I only just started on Eaglesoft in October. So all these handy little tools are they come in. I Google and YouTube you a lot, Andre.
That's all right. It's so funny because I don't even think about when I used to think that was like, oh, that's weird. But now it's like, yeah, I get it. Because when I worked in an office, I only wished that Google was around so that I could get the information, or YouTube was around, because we had to train ourselves way back when I started with Eaglesoft. So I appreciate it, and I'm happy to help. So that's what I'm here for. So
excellent.
Yeah. So yeah, start with your service codes, clean this up as much as possible, and try to make them as user-friendly as possible. Anything you're never going to use, inactivate it, get it out of there. But as you do that process, like I'll just take this. Once you find the setup, and if you need to kind of come back to this video to refresh yourself, this is how you inactivate it. But under chart setup, this is how you tell which button group you want it on.
Oh, okay. So it's under chart setup. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and what I always tell offices to do is, your quick picks should not include every single code. What they should include, like here, I have my amalgams. All right. I have my composite anteriors, and you can see there's nothing on the drop down, because if I do an anterior composite, all I have to do is hit
same code
button. Exactly. All right. Same thing. I do have on my posterior composites, I've got other things because there's other stuff that I do. So if I have to do a modification of a restoration, that's on my posteriors. So,
okay.
But on my dentures, it's only uppers. Because again, the same thing as the composite codes, I can use smart codes. So if I choose lower teeth, it'll automatically change the code.
Now, when you say smart codes.
Yep. So let's just pick D5110. So here's my upper denture code. So I know under chart setup, if I choose the lower teeth, it'll automatically change to a 5120.
Wow. I'm seeing a big project in my very near future.
Oh yeah. Yeah, smart codes. And again, there's a whole post in the Facebook group. If you just do a search for smart codes, you'll see, you want to set up these things so that you only need one version of every single code. So again, if I choose, I know this is not going to be, well, yeah, if I choose my partial, and you can see right there, it says partial upper. But if I choose that code, it just made it a lower.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I had no idea we had this many. Yeah. My mind is blown, Andre.
There you go. Yeah, and that's what I said. The more you utilize it, the easier it becomes. And it sounds counterintuitive, but the more the more work you do on the back end, like if you're going to set these codes up, that'll save a whole lot of issues, because it will also solve a lot of issues with what gets walked out improperly. Now,
Absolutely.
Eaglesoft doesn't understand posterior to anterior. Dentrix does change posterior to anterior, and I've got a whole rap about that. But but you can utilize this to know that if I do a root canal, that's going to be a molar. But if I do that one, I hit the same button, it's now an anterior.
Well, and that's some of the things lately that I've been running into with the staff is, anterior code on a posterior tooth, or a premolar endo code on that sort of thing. So this will take the guesswork out of it for them, and the trouble with having to resubmit incorrectly coded claims for me on the back end.
Exactly. Yep. And just make sure on this drop down, take off all the other things. Just leave the anterior on there. And now once they hit a tooth, it'll fix it for them using the smart codes.
Takes the guesswork out of it altogether. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yep. That's what, I would say, with Eaglesoft set up properly, it's like shooting a monkey into space. The monkey doesn't know how to have to do anything. They just have to live through the process, right? Yeah. So it's really that simple. I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to a lot of things in the software, but I know if I do a few things, I can get it to work. So even like, just knowing a simple, easy way to make sure that if my codes are set up and I have my exploding codes at the top, half the time I don't need to go looking for something. It's right there at the top of my list.
Yeah. Cool. No, this has been a very educational meeting.
Well, good.
Yeah, this is huge.
Well, I'll shut things down now, but if there's anything else that you got, if you can think of, you know how to get in touch with me. So just send me a message. I'll be happy to help.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andre. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Anytime I can help.
All right. Bye.
Take care now.